Many countries now spy on their own citizens. So many times we have told you about mass surveillance in China. Today we will explain how Russia tracks people, how it monitors social media accounts and uses internet regulations for censorship, and most importantly, how Moscow uses surveillance cameras to curb dissent. Here is more.
Russia has a long history of spying. And now, for many Russians, it has become increasingly hard to evade the scrutiny of authorities. The government is actively monitoring the social media accounts of its own people and using surveillance cameras against activists. The country is said to be building what some call a cyber gulag. It's a dark reference to the labor camps that held political prisoners in Soviet times. According to Sarkis Darbinyan, who is the head of legal practice at the Russian internet freedom group Roskomsvoboda, the Kremlin has indeed become the beneficiary of digitalization. It is using all opportunities for state propaganda, for surveilling people, and for de-anonymizing internet users. Yekaterina Maximova is a living example. She is a journalist and an activist. Maximova avoids taking the Moscow subway, even though it's probably the most efficient route. The reason? She's been detained 5 times in the past year. Thanks to the system's pervasive security cameras with facial recognition, if the system flags a passenger for detention, the police respond within seconds. However, the police would let Maximova go after a few hours. She seems to be in some kind of database. Russian authorities are also tightening internet controls. Some regulations allow them to block websites. Others make it compulsory for cell phone operators and internet providers to store call records and messages. And if needed, they should share the information with security services. Moscow even has plans to build what is referred to as a sovereign internet. If required, it could be cut off from the rest of the world. The Kremlin online crackdown has gained momentum in the last 1.5 years. According to Net Freedoms, a prominent internet rights group, more than 610,000 web pages were blocked or removed by authorities in 2022. This is the highest annual total in 15 years. And that's not all. 779 people faced criminal charges over online comments and posts. 65-year-old Marina Novikova was recently convicted in the Siberian city of Seversk for anti-war telegram posts and for spreading false information about the Russian army. A few weeks ago, a Moscow court sentenced opposition activist Mikhail Kryga to 7 years in prison for Facebook comments in which he expressed a desire to hang Putin. Ever since Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, online censorship and prosecutions for social media posts and comments have increased dramatically. A major factor here is a law that was adopted a week after the invasion. It effectively criminalizes anti-war sentiment and outlaws spreading false information and discrediting the army. Experts fear that online censorship is about to expand drastically via artificial intelligence systems. In February, the government's media regulator announced the launch of Oculus, an AI system that looks for banned content in online photos and videos. It can analyze more than 200,000 images a day, while humans can analyze about 200 a day. There are concerns that authorities could also be working on a system of bots that collect information from social media pages, messenger apps, and closed online communities. That's not all. Moscow is also using a system of street cameras enabled by facial recognition technology. There are about 250,000 surveillance cameras in Moscow enabled by the software at entrances to residential buildings, in public transportation, and on the streets. The same cameras have also played an important role in the arrests of hundreds of protesters in Russia. Basically, facial recognition is helping the police identify and sweep up the Kremlin's opponents. According to data from OBD Info, a human rights group that monitors repression in Russia, at least 141 people were detained preventively via facial recognition in 2022. Rights advocates say that under President Vladimir Putin, Russia has harnessed digital technology to track, censor, and control the population. Russia's efforts often draw comparisons with China. Why do we say that? In China, authorities use digital surveillance on a vast scale. Chinese cities are blanketed by millions of cameras that recognize faces, body shapes, and even how people walk to identify them. People are routinely tracked either by cameras or via their cell phones, email, and social media accounts to stifle any dissent. It seems Russia wants to pursue a similar path. The Kremlin is also ramping up its internet censorship machine and using high-tech ways to keep an eye on its citizens.